right? So 12 minutes left. 12 minutes left and what? So battle on for 12 minutes. Obviously. So I'm going to talk about the directors here. Okay, so enough talking about how no one's, because I'm going to keep saying this. No one around the world is worth my royalties, and everyone around the world knows. Everyone, I'm the only person in the world where everyone around the world can say, yeah, nobody is worth Ivy's royalties. No one's worth my royalties around the world. No one. None of the Hollywood actors are worth my royalties. The Step family is not worth my. I don't mean to be rude. The Step families are very powerful. They're very respected, but even they know they're not worth my royalties. All these Hollywood actors know they're not worth my royalties. There's no Hollywood actor is getting a piece of my royalties. I'm going to talk about that in my Swing the Sharks video. The only people who are worth my royalties are Amazon, because Amazon is responsible for distributing my movies worldwide. Because they have a big company, a company worldwide. Amazon's almost in every country around the world. Because they have a big warehouses all over the world, they're the only company that's worth a good 40% of my royalties. Realistically speaking, they're worth like 30% of my royalties. But because I'm generous, I'm willing to give them 40%, as no way in hell will Amazon agree to 70-30. Because we live in a greedy world, hence why I'm generous and I'm willing to give them 40% of the royalties. Considering they're the ones who's responsible for shipping all the posters and shipping all the movies. Obviously. So I'm going to talk about directors, okay? I told you there's a 40% chance. I might even say 50% chance. No, 40% chance. There's a 40% chance I'm going to hire a director to direct my Last Hope for Zane's movie. So I have two cans right now. The two people who, if I were to hire a director, the two people who I want to direct my movie are either Peter Jackson or Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's good because Mel Gibson did Passion of the Christ, and you get some biblical symbols with Zanus, obviously. Picture something like the Bible, except the world looks like Lord of the Rings. So picture something like the Bible, except it's scarier, obviously. It's unheard of horror, more scary than The Exorcist. But the world like Lord of the Rings, so hence why Mel Gibson's perfect for Zanus. At the same time, he also directed Braveheart, which is a medieval movie, obviously. And Peter Jackson did the Hobbit series and Lord of the Rings, hence why Peter Jackson is also perfect for directing what? For directing my Last Hope Zane's movie. So to take the stress off me, what I can do is I'm gonna talk this over with my wife. I'm gonna talk to my wife. I'm gonna tell Victoria Justice, I'm like, look, man, I'm gonna ask Victoria Justice, hey, do you think it's best? You read my book. Do you think it's best that I direct Zanus myself? I'm gonna talk this over with Victoria Justice. I'm gonna tell Victoria Justice when we start Skyfist, I'm gonna tell Victoria Justice, do you think it's best that I direct it myself as a first-time director? I co-write the script with my two script developers, and I direct it myself with assistant help, obviously. I'll hire an assistant director if I direct it myself. Or I hire a well-known director who I can trust to direct my movie and co-write it with me. Because so if I were to hire Peter Jackson or Mel Gibson, I would have them co-write it with me and my two script developers. Because I personally want to write the script. I don't want anyone touching my. I don't want anyone writing my script without my approval, without my assistance, obviously. Because I wrote my story, I know what's best for my story. As if I were to hire Mel Gibson or Peter Jackson, I would have them co-write the story with me. Because I believe for a story like Zanus, the director has to co-write it with you. That way he knows the ins and outs of the movie. As there's nothing worse than the director directing someone else's movie that he didn't write. I believe a director should write his own movie or co-write his own movie. Co-write. I believe every director should co-write. It's always good to have assistant help. As you write on your own, your movie can have problems. Hence why you need assistant help. You need assistant help for people helping you, obviously. So I'm going to tell Victoria Justice, hey, do you think it's best that I co-write with my two script developers and I direct it myself? Well, saves me money, obviously. Or I hire one of those two directors, Mel Gibson or Peter Jackson, to co-write the story with me, and I'll give them what? I'll give them 50% creative control for the console arts. So I have 50% control. You have 50% control for the consoles. I don't want them ruining my story. I want Eric to be develop himself. If I were to hire Peter Jackson or Mel Gibson, I'll give them 50% creative control. I'll give them 100% creative control for directing, but for the concert arts, I'll give them 50% control because I don't want them ruining my story. Obviously, because I want Eric to be develop himself. I want to be very strict about that. I'll give them 50% creative control for the concert arts, but for directing, because they co-write with me, I'll give them 100% creative control for directing. So you get 100% control for directing, right? You co-write the script with me with my two script developers, and I give you 50% control for the console arts. So if one of those guys were hired, I'll give them 50% control for the console arts, obviously. Pay them a good $30 million. I'll pay them a good $5 million bonus for pre-production. So they get a $5 million check for pre-production, which is co-writing the script. If I were to hire them, they would co-write the script with me, my two script developers, as well as doing the concept arts, and then I'll pay them the 25 million at the start of production. And because Peter Jackson is from New Zealand, 25 million Canadian is like 28 million 28 million in New Zealand dollar. The New Zealand dollar is not worth as much as Canadian dollar, and $28 million is a nice paycheck. $28 million to start production and a $5 million paycheck for pre-production, as well as I get two $50,000 royalty checks for each of my re-releases. Every time I re-release a special, if I re-release a special edition or a new Blu-ray 4K Blu-ray technology, they get their two $50,000 check deposit into the bank, which is a nice fucking deal. And they also get spoiled. They get flown by luxury jet. Obviously, they get featured. If they were hired, they're going to get featured the red carpet. Obviously, they're going to be a part of the nice indie style documentary. It looks top notch. But there's a 60% chance I'm going to direct it myself because I'm scared of someone touching my story. I don't want anyone to ruin my Last of Zane story. Once you ruin my book, you'll finally see what I mean. Once you read my book, you guys will be like, "Oh my god, I finally understand why Ivan's book is like my Last of Zane's book is it's my baby, man. It's my precious. My Last of Zane's book is my precious. I don't want anyone ruining my story. Hence why I'm very reluctant to hire a director because I'm scared of giving them control and someone ruin my story. But as long as they co-write it with me and we have the same vision and we do the concept arts together and I give them 100% control and they know what my movie's about, you should get a good movie. Obviously. The only way I'll ever give them 100% creative, 100% control for directing is if they co-write the script with me. That way they know what the story's about. They know the ins and outs of the story, obviously. They need to co-write it with you, obviously, my two script developers. And you give them, and they're there with you during the concept arts. That way they know, that way you and the director have the same vision. As long as you have the same vision, they co-write it with you, you should get a good movie, as those two directors are one of the best in Hollywood. Peter Jackson, in my opinion, is one of the best directors in Hollywood, obviously. Because Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, I don't mean to be rude, Lord of the Rings trilogy blows a lot of these franchises out of the water, man. You have Lord of the Rings, you have Star Wars, hence why the reason why George Lucas, I'll have him consult for business. I won't have George Lucas consult for creative stuff, no. Because Star Wars is a lot different than Zane's. I'll have George Lucas consult for like the business and all, so the business side of things, as well as I can have him consult for a few creative stuff, but I'll have George Lucas consult mainly help my 17 with the business. So he'll be consulting my 17 for all the business calls on stuff, right? Because George Lucas owned his own. He'll be helping me starting Sky Source, and he'll be consulting with what. With the ins and outs of the company and that kind of stuff. Considering he owned his own what? Considering he owned his own company. Even though George Lucas isn't a business guy, because he owned his own company, he obviously knows how to start. He obviously knows how to start what? A film company, obviously. As because George Lucas started Lucasfilms, I'm gonna hire him for the 2 months. He's gonna help me and my wife start Sky Source. I'm also gonna have him and fly him. I'm gonna fly him. He's gonna be a part of the whole process of the 4 years. He's going to be consulting with business as well as some creative. I'll have him consult with a few creative stuff too. He'll be consulting with business and some creative too as well. I'll pay him a good $250,000 for the 4 years. And I'll pay for his hotel, but he has to pay for his own flights. His feeding is all taken care of, obviously. So I can feed him for the 4 years, but he has to pay for his own flights. I'm not paying for his own flights, obviously. So those two direct, I'm gonna tell Victoria Justice, hey man, I'm gonna ask her, hey look man, you read my book. By the time I meet Victoria Justice, she would have already read my book. I'm gonna ask her, hey Victoria, I'm gonna ask her, you read my book. I'm gonna ask you, do you think I should direct Zane's myself as a first-time director? I don't want anyone to read my story, and I'll co-write my two script developers, and I'll hire an assistant director to help me, and my two script developers help me. Or do you think I should take the stress off me? Co-write it with one of those two directors, Mel Gibson or Peter Jackson. Hire them, have them co-write it with me and my two script developers. Have them help me with the concept arts, 50% control of the concept arts, and give them 100% control to direct the movie. Hence, they're going to be taking the directing notes. That way, I can just focus on my acting and it'll take the stress off me. I'm going to ask her that. That way, what? And we're gonna talk this over. That way, we can what? That way, I can make my final choice of whether I want to direct Zane's myself, or whether I want to hire Mel Gibson or Peter Jackson to direct my movie. Again, I'm willing to pay those guys $30 million. I'll pay them out of my pocket. I'm not going to pay them through the budget because it's going to affect the budget a lot. But I'll pay them through my pocket. I'll pay them a nice $30 million. So I'll pay them a $5 million signing bonus for all of pre-production. So for the first three, you get $5 million for the 3 years, pretty much. But they're only going to be working for pretty much 1 year, pretty much. So the first year, if Peter Jackson and Mel Gibson were hired, the first year, what they'll be doing, they'll be flown to Vancouver. I'll pay for their hotel and feeding, and they're going to be co-writing the script with me, my two script developers, as well as they're going to be doing the concept arts with me, obviously. Right? At the same time, they're going to be taking the directing notes, and pretty much the second and third year, they're going to be prepping as a director for the movie. So second and third, they won't even be working. They're just going to be going over the directing notes. They'll be doing the table reads with me and the actors if they're hired. The third year. So the third year, if Peter Jackson and Mel Gibson were hired, they'll be doing the table reads with me, my wife, and the actors. The third year, obviously, 5 days a week, which is slack. So I pay you a $5 million bonus for pre-production, and you get your 25 million or 28 million New Zealand at the start of production, which is a nice fucking paycheck, obviously, as well as you get a rich $203,000 royalty check for each of the releases, which is a nice deal. So there's a 60% chance I'll direct it myself, and there's a 40% chance I will what? I'll hire a director. This is Ivan the Mayor. I'm signing out. Peace. There's noise upstairs.